Hello, welcome to Poem of the Day. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying your wonderful, beautiful day here on sunny planet side Earth. Today we're going to be continuing our Edgar Allan Poe readings. This is part 2 if you're keeping track chronologically. So, today we're going to be reading Spirits of the Dead. Now, this poem and all of his other poems can be found on poemuseum.org. They're located in Richmond, Virginia. So let's jump right into it. Spirit of the Dead. Or, excuse me, spirits. There's plural. There's multiple spirits. Spirits of the Dead. Thy soul shall find itself alone, mid dark thoughts of the grey tombstone. Not one of all the crowd to pry into thine hour of secrecy. Be silent in thy solitude, which is not loneliness, for then the spirits of the dead who stood in life before thee are again in death all around thee, and their will shall then o'ershadow thee. Be still. The night, though clear, shall frown, and the stars shall look not down from their high thrones in the heaven, with light like hope to mortals given, but their red orbs, without beam, to thy weariness shall seem as a burning and a fever, which would cling to thee forever, but 'twill leave thee as each star with a dewdrop flies afar. Now are the thoughts thou canst not banish, now are visions ne'er to vanish, no more, like dewdrop from the grass, from thy spirit shall they pass. The breeze, the breath of God, is still, and the mist upon the hill, shadowy, shadowy, yet unbroken, is a symbol and a token. How it hangs upon the trees, a mystery of mysteries. I want to repeat that last time, because there's an explanation for it. A mystery of mysteries. The last one sounded very robotic. I had to put a little more oomph to finish that off. I almost feel like I should read this poem again, because the Old English goes very hard in this one. Spirits of the Dead, that's what you just heard. This poem is obviously about the dead. Thy soul shall find itself alone. Let me skim this. All right. So, in all seriousness, this is a poem about being dead. I think it's a, observation that Poe is giving. He's putting us in the shoes of somebody 6 feet under in a coffin. The soul shall find itself alone. When you die, I really do think this is a story about somebody who's in the ground. They're in, and it's not some Beetlejuice like waiting in an office surrounded by a bunch of other dead people, heaven or hell. This is just the absolute solitude of dying, which is often explored in literature and film. We come into this world alone and we die alone. That's what I'm getting from this poem a lot. Thy soul shall find itself alone, mid dark thoughts of the grey tombstone. Not one of all the crowd to pry into thine hour of secrecy. Be silent in thy solitude, which is not loneliness, for then the spirits of the dead who stood in life before thee are again in death around thee. The spirits of the dead who stood in life. So these spirits, these dead spirits in life are now with you, and their will shall then overshadow you. Be still. So maybe reading this first stanza, I think it starts out, you're alone, you find yourself alone, but then you look around, and maybe it is a Beetlejuice, waiting room. You are surrounded by the dead, they're going to overshadow you. Be still. So it's almost this macabre, it feels like almost like a cult to me, the cult of the dead almost. You die and you look around, and all of a sudden, all the spirits are with you. So I guess it's more of a timeline, this poem. So it's a timeline of dying to finding yourself with others. The night thou clear shall frown, and the stars shall look not down from their high thrones in the heaven, with light like hope's tomorrow given. So it's also talking about in death, you're not going to look up and see these bright stars. They become this kind of sadistic red orbs without beam. To thy weariness shall seem as a burning and of fever. So, but what you would like to cling to forever, this light, this life. Light is life. As so many times in fiction, nonfiction, and metaphors. But each star's going to leave you with a dewdrop, flies afar. So, yeah, no, it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. I'm reading this. You know, it could bring, maybe on some day, it could bring a tear to my eye. This is it's very emotional. It really feels like I'm looking at. I feel like I am a skeleton, reading this. I feel like this is what it must feel like to be dead. I think Poe really encapsulates the feeling of being dead in this poem. You don't know what's going on. You're all of a sudden you're alone. Then you look around. You're surrounded by dead, and then it gets very Halloweeny in the second stanza. The night thou clear shall frown, and the stars shall not look down from their high thrones in heaven. The stars become this macabre, sinister thing, and they leave you. Now it goes into the thoughts thou cannot banish. Now our visions never to vanish. No more like dewdrops from the grass, from thy spirit shall they pass. The breeze, the breath of God is still. So the breath of God is still. You're finding yourself dead. And the mist upon the hill, shadowy, shadowy, yet unbroken, is symbol and token. How it hangs upon the trees, a mystery of mysteries. And that mist upon the hill, shadowy and shadowy, yet unbroken, is a symbol and a token. That's shadow. Which I think the shadow is just death in this instance. How it hangs upon the trees, a mystery of mysteries. I think death is a mystery. Well, yeah, I mean, at first, I'm not gonna lie. Originally published in 1827, this poem was a bit of a jumble to me, but going through it with you, stanza by stanza, I believe it tells a narrative of someone who's just died, and they're kind of the initial shock, and how shadow is mysterious. And also, every single Edgar Allan Poe piece gives me Stephen King vibes. I feel like I'm watching Pet Sematary reading this. Well, I think it's interesting. I can see it. I can see the fog, the moonlight, the trees silhouetted, the tombstones. It really is an amazing thing. You ever walk around a cemetery at night. It's a very uncanny, uncomfortable feeling. But ironically, when you're in a cemetery at night, it's very peaceful. And you almost feel enveloped in this blanket because you're almost not alone, It's a weird way to put it, but in that cemetery, you are surrounded by the spirits of the dead. So if you've never done a night tour of a cemetery, go ahead and see what I mean. So, and don't get Scooby-Doo chased. But, yeah, that is Spirits of the Dead by Edgar Allan Poe. And I also want to plug something in here as well. This is not a poem, but it is literature. I wanted to shout out this novel by Arthur C. Clarke, A Fall of Moondust. It's published under Sci-Fi Masterworks. I'm also on the outside here of big sci-fi reader. I've read Sci-Fi Masterworks. I saw this in the bookstore in shout out West Sider, New York City. I saw SF and I immediately knew I had to have it. I think Sci-Fi Masterworks is a great publisher. I've read Stalker as well by them, and this book did not disappoint. So if you're looking for a good recommendation of what to read, not poetry related, but is literature, Fall Moondust, definitely recommend you check it out. I'll put it in the video description, along with the name, the poem, and the author, who we've Edgar Allan Poe, Spirits of the Dead. But that is all for Poem of the Day and book plug. So thank you so much for listening and listening to me deduce this poem. I really enjoy having you here and keeping me and the cyberspace company. So thank you again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And as always, keep it real.